the plan today, at least for what I wanted to talk about, was kind of two parts. Some of you might be familiar with the cliche, living in the problem and living in the solution. So I'm going to talk about in the first half of my little presentation or slideshow here, where we are with the current research in science, and looking at addiction in general, overall, and then kind of zoning in on what we're calling food addiction, and kind of take you all through that in terms of bringing you up to speed with what we know to be factual, and interspersed with that are some personal experiences as well as some clinical experiences, and I'll try to delineate between the two. So with that, we're going to go in terms of defining the problem. And like I said, I want to define addiction and what delineates an addiction from a bad habit, so on and so forth. So a couple of years ago, and updated this year, the American Psychiatric Association used to categorize addictions separately. So you'd have a diagnosis and a chapter on alcohol dependency, cocaine dependency, opioid dependency, amphetamine dependency, and so on and so forth. Then they updated that and tried to find a kind of a generic definition that would cover the waterfront, so that we would be talking about all addictions. And they came up with these symptoms, or 7 characteristics, and then later defined these characteristics in terms of severity. So mind you, they were still thinking of substance dependencies. They added, just for good measure, one process addiction, which means non-substance, which was compulsive gambling. They did not and do not consider compulsive overeating, binge eating disorder, or any form of anorexia, compulsive overeating, as necessitating being included under the addiction section, but included that and look upon it as a psychiatric disorder as opposed to a chemical dependency order. Au contraire. Okay, so let me go through this sort of quickly, and I must use my reading glasses. So they looked at these characteristics, and we're going to do a little self-test if you'll participate. Okay. I'm going to define each of these. These are the characteristics in order for you to qualify as having an addiction. One is tolerance. And of course, most of us know that tolerance is needing more of the same substance or doing more of the same behavior to get the same effect. So you can start out eating this much, and over time, to get the same effect, eating this much. You could start out drinking this much, but to get the same feeling from the alcohol, of course, you start to drink more. Withdrawal symptoms. Most people think of that as pretty dramatic, like the man with the golden arm about heroin addiction. It's not all about sweating, flopping on the floor, and leaving babies in the car and whatnot, although that certainly is part and parcel of addiction and withdrawal. With eating disorders, it can be more subtle, maybe a little less dramatic, but nonetheless very real. So most of the symptoms of withdrawal mimic the symptoms of low blood sugar or hypoglycemia, but they definitely include increased anxiety, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and some physical changes, headaches, and sometimes you can have abdominal pain, constipation. For those of you that have been at Milestones, we do a whole lecture on constipation. The other symptom is more for longer periods than intended. Anybody start to eat and find that they ate for a longer period of time, like the whole weekend? Okay. Also, I want to include anorexia in this, or bulimorexia, because addiction is the disease of more. And so there's never enough weight loss. So you can look at tolerance, withdrawal, but more for periods of longer periods of time, because most people that suffer with that end of the spectrum intend to stop at various numbers on a scale or various times, and of course we know don't. Unsuccessful effort to cut back or control. Anybody diet here? Okay. Sufficient time to obtain or recover from effects. Giving up social, occupational, recreational activities because of substance use. And continuation despite consequences. So if we could do a poll, if you're open to it, how many can identify in your food addiction or eating disorder with tolerance? How many with withdrawal? How many with more for longer periods than intended? Everybody, I'm so proud of you. You're all scoring almost perfectly. Unsuccessful effort to cut back? The back row's cured. Okay. See, I work fast. Okay. Significant time to obtain or recover from effects. Anybody go shopping without a list? And they send out an all points bulletin for you? Giving up social, occupational, recreational activities. Isolation. Continuing despite consequences. So if you scored 2 to 3, you have a mild form of an eating disorder or addiction. Moderate is 4 or 5, and most of you will be going back to treatment with me. Okay.